Mekki, so I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mekki.
There it is. Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mekki on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com, where it's more than just radio, so jump into the chat room if you can. This is show number 283, or as Mekki would say, 380 and 200. It's on air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Gray's Tabletop digital radio. If you missed it, Solaris' show was awesome. She had Steve Colburn on talking about North Korea. It's a hot topic of at least this week. It only cost $5. Only $5. Let's consider that a coffee, the cost of a cup of coffee, to access the Freedom Slips archives and check out her shows, our shows, and all of the hosts' shows. All the archives can be found right there in the archives. $5 a month. Do yourself a favor and jump in there. I do it. It's just a direct debit. I set it up. I've got constant access to all the host shows because I'm busy. I know you're busy too. You're busy, and you're busy, so busy that you can't tune into the show you want on freedomslips.com when it's on live. So don't. Just jump in the archives, download it. It's like a podcast. And you can listen whenever you want. I think it's great. It really is. We, and that's Mekki and I, acknowledge the traditional owners, and Mekki is now finally online. Oh, let me say that again. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. Where I live, it's the Darkinjung people, and where Mekki lives, it's the Daruk people. And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. That's what we do. We wouldn't be broadcasting from Sydney, Australia, and have the respect of our native people. We wouldn't be doing that if we were different kinds of person. I believe that all the peoples of the world who've been caretakers before this, industrial revolution, before this technological revolution, before the ignorance of our societies have forced us to ignore them. And we're owning that again. We're pulling it back. This is ours. This is yours. This is a place we should be in. We should be in a place where we're respecting the people who were the caretakers, who looked after this place before we got here. Because they did the right thing. Are we doing the right thing? I don't know. Are we doing the right thing for the planet? Probably not. I like cars, I like TV, I like my TV shows, I like movies, I like entertainment, I like the culture that our society has blossomed into. Has it been better in the past? Probably. Is it going somewhere? Let's hope. Mekki, I'm saying this because Steve Colburn was on and I'll talk about North Korea on the previous show with Solaris. Great show, by the way, Solaris. Well done.
Oh.
So, Mekki, your volume's a little low. If you'd like to bring that up, that'd be great. Let's see if we can bring that up for you.
Is this better?
That is better. All right, we'll get some feedback in a mo. Anyway, how have you been, Mekki?
Okay then. Yeah, pretty good. It's been a busy week. It has flown by. It's just insane how things go. It's time. No, we've spoken about this as a show theme. Time seems to be flowing by faster. I want to say that's actually physically impossible, but clearly it isn't, and it does feel like time has speeded up. So the week goes by, then the weekend flies by. My kids are growing up, years are flying by, and you look, hang on, 10 years have passed? What? So this week was specifically fast. I don't know why or how, but It's just how it is. I broke my foot. I think I said this right last time. It's still broken. I'm wearing a boot, even though I'm slow. So I'm slow in getting around. My foot, slows me down. Time has not slowed down in response. Time just flies by, and then I work late hours as well. So my nights bleed into my days, and my days bleed into each other. Sometimes I'm hard pressed figuring out which day it is. And today is Sunday, I think. I get the show, so it has to be Sunday. But it's okay. Having said all of that, obviously we're all a little bit worried about North Korea and Mr. Trump developments there. They are what they are. Things don't seem to be getting better, right? Is this a new Cold War? I think we discussed this. Is this hotting up to be a hot war? I hope not. It's not going to go well for anyone if it is turning into a hot war. But let's hope that cooler tempers prevail and more sensible people have the final say in whatever happens. It's it's been a week. It hasn't been. I have this strange vibe as well. I know this sounds strange on the air, I guess, but do you feel that as well? It's like there's a strange vibe in the air, Dave. Do you get that? Like, I don't know. It's I had a similar vibe when George Bush Jr. was in.
Uh-oh. Where's Meki going? Let's see if his video catches up with his audio.
Thing. Somewhere outside. Go ahead.
Let's just see if your video catches up again, Meki. 1 sec. There you go. It looks like it's caught. It looks like it's caught back up again.
Yes. Okay, all good. I've actually turned my video off now.
Okay. All right.
That should give us more bandwidth. So now I was just saying, I don't know if you caught me or not, but I was saying there that there seems to be an oppressive feeling in the air. I don't know. It's not quite tangible, but it like when George Bush Jr. was in Sydney. Remember his visit? There was like this tangible. There was this tangible feeling. Not of, I guess, of dread in some ways, but it was certainly a bad vibe. Like, there you go. It was a bad vibe all around. That's the feeling I had back then, anyway.
So, okay, I've been following this North Korean story from as many aspects as I can, from RT, from mainstream, from the underground media, from the alternate media, from as many of the eastern countries as I can, as well as the West, and to me, it appears as though they're setting it up for a false flag, Meki, and we're familiar with those. That if anything were to happen in Guam, that it's game on. China has said emphatically, if North Korea first strike, we'll stand back and you can do whatever you want. Whatever you want. Mr. Trump, you can attack, we won't step in. But if you first strike, it's game on. If the US first strikes, it's game on. And China will be in with all its fury as well. Now, those kind of words says, you know what, we don't trust North Korea. China's position doesn't appear to trust them. You know, if they want to be stupid enough to go and play with you guys, well, that's their bag. And that's the way it appears to me. But our media is saying we're standing next to America. We're joined at the hip. We're going to be we're partners in our ANZUS treaty. So if one gets affected, we're both in. And that's good. But I'm seeing something a little different. It's only 30 seconds or something after a launch from North Korea to South Korea before Seoul is, devastated. It's the third largest city in density of people in the world. Doesn't take very much, and they're at a knife's edge, and it's a dangerous situation. It's always been dangerous. But now America's talking about the risk of them already having everything in the tunnels ready to go underneath, across the border from North Korea to South Korea. Now, this heightened tension thing, I know where that's coming from. This clearly looks like they want conflict. Meki, I'll tell you, my friends are talking about it like, oh, it's just Trump's way of wanting to strike a deal up. Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, it would be nice.
Kim Jong-un says, all right, okay, I can't fool anyone, right? All right, so let's just make a deal, and we can buy and sell and trade, and let's get all that stuff happening. Great. But is that going to happen? Right now, when I look at all of the dates and the discussions, they're talking about the 15th of August as being the day they're going to strike. The US will attack regardless, or there's something that they're going to false flag. Maybe Guam, maybe, I don't know, something somewhere will blow up and it'll look like it came from North Korea, and then it'll be every single gun is pointed at North Korea. My question is, Meki, what do you think? Do you think they would do a surgical strike? Do you think they would take out just Kim Jong-un? Do you think they'd obliterate North Korea? I mean, I can't see what they would currently...
It depends.
...be able to do, because wouldn't Kim Jong-un right now just be hidden away? You'd protect the leader, right?
Yeah, look, and in fact, he's more than a leader. I think his journey. He's journeying towards godhood. Okay, that's the way he's headed. Our beloved leader, right? Yeah. No, I really believe. I mean, his father. I mean, you have to understand, he was born into power. He actually studied overseas. Okay, he was educated in the West, and he was born into power. And that means a number of things, and all of them not good. Having said all of that, though. What is the end game here that wants to be achieved? And this is the question we have to ask ourselves when we analyze the situation in North Korea. So, is this the first step toward the depopulation agenda? If it is, that's bad for everybody. That's a really, really bad thing. Okay, so let's hope that's not what it is. Let's hope that's not it. Okay. Because if you wanted a pretext to start a global conflict, you couldn't ask for anything else. This is perfect. It's what people have now become to believe is a rogue nation. It's a nice little catchphrase, a rogue nation. It is now nuclear. It has been nuclear power or nuclear armed capable for some time now. But what it is now it's got an intercontinental ballistic missile. But what does that mean? Well, neighbors. It could threaten China. It could threaten like most of Asia, maybe even Northern Australia potentially. But that was it. It's a limited regional player. With the achievement of getting, and it's not a small achievement, by the way, guys, to be able to get a missile that exits the atmosphere. Or at least it's in low Earth orbit, if you will, even, and then re-enters the atmosphere to hit a target. That's not a small achievement. The Germans tried that during World War II, and they had the best minds working at that. And with the V2 rockets, they came close. and it took the Americans and the Russians quite some time to develop the ICBMs that we have today. Anyway, so there's North Korea that got it. We know they can shoot one into the air, and it doesn't blow up. So we know that. What we do not know are two things. One, do they have a nuclear warhead sufficiently small enough to be carried by an ICBM? So we don't know that for sure. We don't know. Two, do we know if they've solved the re-entry problem? So shooting something out of the atmosphere is one thing. That's not easy. It's a lot harder to have something re-enter. Because there's friction, there's the right angle. As you shoot something out, the friction decreases. The friction decreases as your atmosphere thins out in the layers, right? But as you re-enter something, the atmosphere gets thicker and friction increases, right? That's why a lot of things burn up when they come into the atmosphere, which is a good thing again. It's a good thing for us because otherwise we'd be hit by rocks all the time, right? But so you have to come in at just the right angle. To make sure that your rocket, your missile, whatever you want to call it, doesn't actually blow up, or because the heat of re-entry is such that simply destroy your ICBM. So we don't know that. So these are two things we don't know. Let's hope they can't. But let's say they can do these two things. They've got a nuclear warhead that's small enough and they can re-enter. They still don't have a stockpile of ICBMs. I suggest they have less than 10. I suggest I could be wrong. Now, the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, they have thousands of warheads. Thousands. We're not talking about an equal conflict here, Dave. This is not, Russia and the US or USSR and USA going at it in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. This is not this. This is it's a small country, relatively speaking, with a large conventional standing army, yes, with no navy to speak of. I don't think they've got nuclear submarines. They don't have an air force that is comparable to the States, China, or Russia, or even Israel, I think. But they now have nuclear capability. So whatever the outcome is, whatever happens, if this is going to be a shooting war or it's going to be some kind of surgical strike, an invasion to dismantle the regime and then install, I guess an America-friendly regime, whatever the outcome is, we have to understand this is not a match of equals. People talk a lot about, this is. I'm not saying there's no threat. Does North Korea have the capability to destroy American cities? Well, if they have, like I said, a sufficiently small nuclear warhead and they can re-enter the atmosphere, the answer is yes, they can. They can destroy Detroit. They can destroy Chicago, destroy New York. The ICBM will go that far. But that will probably be it. It'll be a city or a number of cities. They have no capability of conquering the United States. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two, you go in and you install a central bank. So is this driven by the central banks, banker elite, right? Is this one of their agendas? So forget the depopulation. That's gone by the wayside. If it is them, then what we can see surgical strikes, we can see the taking out of the leader, and we can see the installation of a puppet government, if you want to call it that, right? So that's what's going to happen there. Is this to postulate, to posture rather, not postulate, is this to posture in front of Russia and China? Well, if it is, what we're going to see is they're going to move a whole bunch of fleets into the South China Sea as well, or into the area to posture against North Korea, and to also warn of China not to do anything. Then that can go anyway, right? And then there's another scenario. I mean, there are many others, but there's one other major scenario where you because the thing is, at this point, Dave, we've talked about rational players, right? Everybody is a rational player. That's game theory.
That's right.
Except now,
theoretical.
But now, theoretical, right? But now let's take that away. Game theory goes out the window, and rational players go out the window with it. Just like cause and effect went out the window in Copenhagen, right? What's gone? Because in my opinion, Kim Jong-il, anyway, I always get the names wrong. He's not a rational player. I think.
So
and I think Donald
Kim Jong Un.
Il. Kim Jong Un.
Il was the father. Un is the son
That's
now.
Right. Thank you. Excellent. Now, I don't think he's a rational player. Not really. I mean, he's rational enough, but he's not really as rational as some people. And Donald Trump is a rational player, but I think he doesn't fully comprehend what is at his fingertips. You understand what I mean? So, and I tell you why I say this. There are business decisions which he has made all his life, and he has run businesses successfully. And you could run the United States of America like a business. You can, if economics was the only game in town, if there was no diplomacy, no international relations, no terrorism, then you can run the United States of America like a business. And he would do a really good job, I think. He would do a really good job. Because he understands economic realities, he understands the market, he understands, commercial negotiations, he understands all of that. And so do his advisors. But he doesn't understand any of the rest, right? Because he hasn't been educated in it. He hasn't been exposed to it. He hasn't been part of the Washington club, if you will. I mean, he's not a career politician. He's not a career diplomat. Okay? So that's why he says certain things the way he says them. They're quite simplistic. One thing you have to understand, guys, and I've dealt with a lot of them, the C-level executives are like children. They can make really important decisions very quickly with just a little bit of data, but they're not very good. They're not very good at following complex arguments or reading long texts.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a presentation that goes to a C-level executive, make sure there are a lot of pictures, and you talk to the pictures. Okay, it's not because they're simple-minded, but there's a lot going on in their lives, and it just makes it easier to make a decision. Right? If you can break it down to simplistic baselines. Unfortunately, international relations aren't that. They're not simplistic baselines. You have to understand the history of the world, really, to understand why it looks the way it does today, and to make sure that you don't make mistakes we've made in the past. I'll give you a simple example of a mistake. Albright, Madeleine, you probably remember she was Secretary of State under Clinton. Very capable woman, extremely good Secretary of State, in my opinion. I thought she was actually quite good. Forget all the other shortcomings she had, but she was actually quite qualified for the role. But they sent her into the Middle East. They sent a Jewish woman into the Middle East to negotiate peace. Really? That's a good idea now. Yes. And Jeffrey Dahmer is going to be in charge of juvenile detention for boys. That's what we're going to do. We're going to put Jeffrey Dahmer in as the head guard for juvenile detention. Look, I'm not saying that she's Jeffrey Dahmer. What I'm saying is you send the wrong person to do the wrong job, you get a bad outcome. Okay? And right now, I think we've got two people that are the wrong people for that particular job. Donald Trump's agenda was economic, or the main agenda. Like, no, let's make America great again. Let's build up American economic power. Let's do all of these things. He would be the guy for that. What we're facing right now with North Korea, but even the emergence or re-emergence of Russia, and certainly the growth of power and wealth in China, those two factors alone look. The world used to be very simple. It used to be, in my youth at least, there was the USSR and there was the US. You know exactly where you stood. There was no ambiguity. Then the world got more complicated, and there was only one superpower, the United States of America. That has changed. Out the window, gone.
That's gone.
Right? In fact, I would say, except for its military power, America is in decline in every sector. In every single sector, it's in decline. And what happens is that other people rise to fill a vacuum. So Russia has certainly reemerged. China was always on the rise. And China ironically enough, being the largest surviving communist country in the world, apart from Cuba, I guess, is also the most powerful economically. Right? So they've got like a hybridization of communism, capitalism going. It seems to be going well for them, right? So they are they have no interest in a war, I don't think. I really don't think so. But there are other players as well that are rising in importance, right? Brazil is one. India to some extent, but India's internal problems are too great. They're too great. And India is suffering a massive brain drain. Everybody who can leave India is leaving India. So you've got a lot of Indians working everywhere in the world. And India itself, in my opinion, has got a lot of issues economically, culturally, specifically around the caste system. I've been to India many times now. You know, I've been to India. I've got a fairly good understanding of how it works and then what happens there. And it's also fragmented. And the British took India over, in more or less, right? In those terms, they pulled India together. But people don't realize there's no India per se. There's no Indian race. There's no Indian nation as such. There's an amalgamation of Indian peoples, right? Like most other countries in the world. Germany, it's a whole collection of different German nations, German peoples pulled together by Bismarck, right? And India is the same. And India's differences are significant, right? In language, in culture, in food, religion, okay? And even ethnically speaking. So I don't think, whereas in China, the Han Chinese are dominating. They also have many language groups. They have many different ethnic minorities. But China is more uniformly adapted to that than India is. So China works as a monolith in a way, and India works like the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli parliament, a party of 1,000 different people. All right. Anyway, so this, we are now living in a very complicated world. The world we're living in reminds me a lot, Dave, of the world prior to World War I. It really does, because you have the fading power. I can draw
some parallels. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. The fading power of the British Empire, right?
Yep.
The rising power of the German Empire. Then you've got all these other players like Russia, but struck with internal strife. You know, the communists are gaining power and so forth. You know, then the colonies are they're not as peaceful as they used to be. There's the diaspora of some of the European Jews into Palestine. Right? It's the first yeshuva under Theodor Herzl in the 1880s, and so there's this new forms of ideology of spring. Communism is a new thing, right? Wow, communism! Oh, that rears its ugly head because it is a direct response to the way the workers were treated in countries like Germany and Great Britain specifically. And Karl Marx wasn't very happy with that, and he thought, "Oh, this is not the right thing to do." This, you know, so out of that, I guess, a need to uplift the workers, communism was born. Never meant for Russia, never meant for China, because they're agrarian countries and they don't have a production base. So again, it's in flux. The UN, I have to be honest with you, Dave, do you think the UN has any power here? Is doing anything? I mean, the big powers, they do pretty much what they want. I mean, the UN is neither here nor there, in my opinion. Right? That's what I think. So, I give you just to sum it up really quickly. What happens over the next few weeks and months depends on which scenario is going to be realized, and it depends on whose agenda is going to win out. It's a very long answer to a short question.
Without an answer, too. I like that. Now, I see, and if you haven't checked your own media or media from around the world, Bhutan and India, Bhutan asked India to assist in holding the disputed area that was an agreement from the 1880s or 1890s with China upon this mountain peak. And it's, you know, it's just a dot on a map. I mean, does it really matter? Well, India's troops to get to it, because the three countries touch at this point, Bhutan asked India to step in and help. And while they say there's no shots fired in anger, this is defensive lines and troops on borders right now. And China's argument in this little tiny conflict that no one's heard about is, well, you know, the what are we really talking about? What do you mean disputed? You know, the agreement, we hold the treaty. And they don't answer it. And they say, and India is saying, well, we just like a dialogue on this land. And Bhutan's saying, well, if India steps away, China's going to come and start building on it. So the three of them, India is trying to just keep the two of them away from each other and trying to make it work. China's quite adamant that it is their right to be able to do what they want with it. Now, where is this story? Where does that fit into what's going on currently? That's current too. But the South China Sea. This week, the American ship, USS whatever it was, sailed through 12 miles away outside of from an island, and China claimed that they'd shooed the Americans away. In the Chinese media, that is. Now, the American media doesn't say that. The mainstream media doesn't say that. That's all we heard was an American ship went through the, you know, freedom of movement through the South China Sea. That's it. We didn't hear of a defeat or a shooing away in our media. Now, this is what I'm trying to get through, not to you, Mackie, not to our audience, but to those that you're having discussions with. Because I know that you do that. Our listenership does this. At some point, you're going to talk to someone who isn't where you are, and you're going to talk to them about the media and about how the media dresses what they want you to think in a way that they want you to think it. Pardon me. I'm still at the end of this flu. Sorry about that. At the moment, if I was to ask anyone on the street, do a pop vox, Mickey and I get out there with a video camera and start interviewing people, and said, is North Korea sane or insane? If I only asked that question, people would say, well, they're not really sane. Aren't they provoking everybody in their head? They're provoking people, right? Well, that's not sane activity. These are insane people. Okay, so they're insane. Should we bomb them back to the Stone Age? Why not? Because you've already been set up by the media to think only one direction, one path, and that's it. Just because a country has nukes and talks a hard game doesn't mean they're going to do it. That's number one. I'm not a lefty, pinko, commie, right? I don't side with either party. However, do you know what? If you're gonna make an enemy of the US, good luck with that. That's the way I see it. I don't know which way it's gone. I've not seen any press release actually from Kim Jong-un where he's speaking to camera, and it's translated accurately, where he says he's going to do anything. None. Nothing.
Yeah.
Zilch, nada. There has been none of that. There's been a lady, you know, at a news desk stating something which it appears on the face of it to have come from the North Korean government. Can't say anything else. I'm not going to call it a regime. It's still a government. They govern as poorly as they might do from the media that we've seen, whether their people are starving. Don't know. I presume it to be true.
Mm.
But does that warrant attacking them? No. Is it likely a false flag can happen? Yeah, quite positively. Now, in all of the Donald Trump speeches and talk it up pre-election to now post-election, he's explained quite clearly that he's not going to advertise anything he's going to do militarily in advance. Good for him. Except all these little hints and snippets and things that he says, like it's going to rain fury on them. And then times, like equivalent to times, I'm paraphrasing, times running out for them, for the North Koreans. And that at some point, very soon, we'll know on the 15th, I think he said, mid-August, we'll be prepared for it. For what? Right? So, see, he hasn't said what he's going to say, but he's said the other things that you would read between the lines and hear. Yeah. And that's the why, and that's the why of the how that I got to where I'm at. Because now I'm watching all the mainstream, so the Foxes and the CNNs and the RTs all talking this up, and each country, each Western country, this is like the fingers over the button. We're so close to there being a calamity of a global war proportion that the fingers hovering over the button of like someone with a stammer, their fingers nervously hovering about to push the button. That's the position that's been painted. Now, what's actually happened? He's fired a couple of test missiles, and now he looks like he might be nuclear. So, what, is he going to take him out because of that? But the French, take the French out. They have been nuclear for ages. What about India? I'll take them out. They've got nukes. Could do the same thing to, I suppose, Israel. They got nukes. But why them? And I just leave the question out there because it does my head in to try and think of the motive behind it. Because what, are they mineral rich, Meki?
Nope. No, they don't have a central bank.
That's it.
There's no central bank. So that's one of the most important things. And there are only 3 countries in the world right now that don't have a central bank. And when I mean a central bank, I mean a central bank that is controlled by the global central bank, the IMF, the Monetary Fund, and so forth. And it's only one of 3, and you will see the other 3 fall as well.
So who are these 3, Meki?
Syria is one.
Yep.
North Korea, obviously, is the other.
And can I guess the other one?
Go ahead.
Iran?
That's right. So Iran doesn't have something either, right? So Venezuela didn't have one for the longest time. But and you might have noticed as well the rhetoric against against Venezuela has died down somewhat, not completely, but somewhat. And this is really the game, guys. This is the end game, is to get everybody under control. And once that happens, like Rothschild said, the founding father of the Rothschild dynasty. Let's call them the dynasty that they are. He said, I don't care who rules a country. And he might have also said, I don't care which party is there. I don't care if they're communist, capitalist, monarchist. I don't care. He didn't say that, but he could have. He said, I don't care who rules a country or who is king, as long as I control the country's money supply. And that's the truth of it. That's the ultimate truth of it. Money is the root of all evil, because it allows for parasites to exist. It allows for people to not just exist, but become obscenely wealthy without actually contributing anything to the rest of the world. And that's where we are, everybody. We're living in a world where if you work hard, physically even, right? Like let's say a laborer or maybe you work in a factory, chances are that your lifestyle is 1,000 times worse than someone who doesn't lift a finger physically to do anything, but rather works on computers in the banking system, doing things that are mostly opaque to the rest of us, but not actually adding anything. So if you're working in the factory, or you're building a house, or you're a plumber, or even especially a farmer, right? You can look at the fruit of your labors, and there it is. There it is. You can see it. I feel good. I've done something. Those guys can't do that. They can't point to something. In fact, what they do is completely the opposite. They take value away from the rest of us. They take value out of society, if you will, right? But they're immensely rich. They're not making. They make nothing. At the end of the day, there is no shed. There's not a cabinet. There's not a cake they can point to that they've made. But in the time that you build a house, and you would have made, I don't know, let's call it $20,000, $30,000, right? Whatever, maybe more. They would have made tens, maybe even hundreds of millions for themselves. Okay, so that's the world we're in, my friends. And because these three countries aren't under complete control quite yet, we will do anything we can, they say, these elites, to get them under our control. It's a slow process sometimes, right? But eventually they will fall. And they will succeed, because the United States of America started its war of independence. Believe it or not, look up your histories. Not because of the taxation without representation issue, having King George in England, and that taxing them, and it's all that, but they don't actually have anyone in Parliament arguing their case. I mean, that was a bad thing, sure. The worst thing was that the English bankers said to King George, you know what, we can't have those colonials, printing their own currency. That's unacceptable. They're not under our control. So go over there and tell them they have to establish a central bank, which we control, which is what they did try to do, and what the initial founding fathers and presidents fought very hard to avoid. They fought very hard to make sure that wouldn't happen. But it did. It did. They lost. The banking wars of the 19th century. Look it up. See if you can do some of your own research. But this is a real thing, right? So Dave, so it's a matter of control. These bastards, and I call them that, can't not be in control. And the thing is this: Iran, Syria, and in fact, a lot of the countries prior to all the troubles, right? Prior, the invasion of Iraq and whatever, they were doing okay. They were doing really okay. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, North Korea never did well for a number of reasons. But again, Korea itself didn't have any problems until there was a war between. It was really between the United States and China, which was fought on Korean territory. And the same thing that happened to Korea happened to Germany just I guess 20 years earlier. It was divided, right? And one side became American, the other side became Chinese, communist, capitalist, and so forth. So these are all complex. They're complex
interplays.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, they're very complex, and you have to understand history. You have to understand motivations, and you have to understand the bigger game as well, the bigger picture. It's easy enough to say, oh, North Korea is a rogue state ruled by an insane tyrant. Okay, you can say that, right? And you wouldn't be too far off. How did it get there? And what is really at play here, though? I mean, why are things happening the way they are? And if that is true, then why haven't we invaded them already? Why haven't we helped the North Korean people? Well, because Dave, they're not mineral rich. They don't have any oil because there's no interest in doing any of that, right? So finally we get to the banking motive, which is the longer game, or the long con, as I like to call it. But yeah, so it's a very complex environment, and again, this show is designed to help you guys understand what actually goes on. You have to form your own opinion, right? I mean, Dave and I have our own theories, but for the most part, if you do your own research, you can uncover those hidden agendas by yourself, right? I mean, Dave and I have been doing this for a long time, so we have got a fairly good insight. And I've always been a student of history, and Dave understands history as well. So it's almost impossible, Dave, right? And I'm going to hand you the talking stick now because I have to take a drink of water. It's almost impossible though to understand this unless you understand history as well.
Now, you had a good question earlier, and that was, what do I think about the UN? And you know, I see them as toothless. The UN was not quite what it should have been, was turned back because no one could agree, and then became just a place like an open court where you could, you know, dob on your neighbours and get harsh things happening to people because, for some reason, they just didn't seem to want to play the game. That's all that is. It's just a group of countries that have agreed to listen to each other. Look, that's a starting point, but it's certainly not the world police. It's certainly not an over-governing body that is probably, don't hate me for one world government speak, because that's not really what I'm trying to suggest. But a governing body that keeps everybody else in line. Is that really the one world government, the way that the conspiracy speak or the fear speak, the fear porn drives that narrative? Is that what that is? Because I think that if we were to have to deal with maybe speaking with another species or aliens, whatever you want to call them, visitors, if we made first contact, I know the role has been made in the UN and I know there's someone appointed to it, but that's really what that should be. That should be the Earth's government. You'll always need local, you'll always need state, you'll always need a federal, but then there should be a global government. You think it's tough now trying to get people to sit at the same table and keep those earpieces in, listening to a translation of what someone else is speaking about at the UN. Think about this if it was actually having to be governed by them. Imagine if there was a cross-pollination of money, if we only had one world currency. But think about the time when we would need it. Think about how that could be of benefit to us. And I know that's what they're pushing. And I know that's what they're doing right now. And they're equalizing everyone with low wages. There's no other reason why all of our countries are down the toilet as much as they are. And we can't all blame 9/11, although I know we do, for how poorly everyone's country's wages have downturned, or there's no increase, or there's all the wages are stagnant, and that the companies are really having a hard time. What else happened? Nothing else happened. Yeah, the GFC, that's because the banksters were just trying to rip each other off. Because of low regulations, possibly. Higher regulations might have prohibited that kind of behavior. But the banks, the governments, and our financial systems, with the financial systems at the top, are the ones who control everything. But would it be better with another layer over the top? I don't know. I think we're going to find out, and I think it's going to happen sooner than later. And I think we're at the time of the awkward teenage years as a planet. If we just get past this next couple of weeks, and as the talk it up is right now, there's going to be some kind of conflict next week. That's what I'm seeing. And if we can get past this, I can only imagine that we might be living in better days. Could you imagine if the one wage right across the planet for hourly rate in a currency that was the same currency, the globalists wouldn't be able to take advantage of a low wage environment? that it wouldn't matter what country they employed people, it would be the same wage. You just set up where it was most efficient for you. But with the depopulation agenda and only 500 million, we won't need half the people. And Meki's opening phrase was that. Maybe this is what this is all about. Maybe this conflict is inevitable. Maybe this is what they've designed. Maybe, 10 years ago they went, well, we've got to try and find conflict somewhere. But sir, we're all getting along quite well. Well, make it. Let's make a conflict. North Korea doesn't seem to want to talk to anyone. Well, they can be the bad guys. Awesome. They've been exporting and importing quite happily on their own. They just want to grow up. Hasn't all the other countries grown up and had nuclear weapons? Accidentally or surprisingly so. Turned up in the nuclear club. Hey, fellas, I'm one of you guys now. And why would we seriously inhibit any other country's ability to join the club? Can you close the door once you've created the club? Surely people would earn the right to join it. Oh, but you can't just join it if you've got nuclear weapons. There's got to be something else. Central bank. I'm pointing at Meki. You can't see that. Right? So this is how complicated the darn world is. And before then, we were talking, Meki, you mentioned India, and the East India Trade Company always comes to mind every time I hear that. That was the largest company on the planet. I bet you.
Well, why do you say it was? Why do you say it was?
Well, yeah, good point. That's very good. So when you go back, Meki's right. When you go back in history and you see where we've come from, how we got to where we're at, and maybe all the mistakes that have led us to where we're now, do you think they're going to change those mistakes or add to them? Do you think there's going to be more mistakes in advance of where we're at? I reckon. I reckon we're fumbling in the dark with no true direction, but the only direction is being dictated to by guys fanning large wads of money. That's all I see. And I don't say that from a jealousy point of view, because while I like money, we live in a money game. This is the thing. This is what it is. Right? I'll never say no to money. I'll never say no to money.
I like. Oh no, but that's you can't. It's just, sorry. I don't mean this in a hippie kind of way. When I was saying earlier, the money is the root of all evil. Of course, we can't live without it these days. Impossible. How are you gonna do it? You can't. It's living in America without a car. Good luck to you. Okay.
Living in SoCal, Southern California, without a car. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, so, well done to you. But sorry, we have gone on for an hour for all of this now.
I know, right?
That's a while. Look, let's close out the Black Knight satellites in the next hour, because we're coming close to the station break here.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've also done some research into the timelines of human evolution, timelines, blah, 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 and also the latest cutting edge pushing back of those timelines, which we're going to share with you in a future show cycle. I can tell you one thing, though. Speaking about history, sorry, just to plug for our future show here. The timeline is being pushed further and further into the past. So we're going to look at some interesting research here from around the world, and some very recent research as well around the age of humanity and such. We're going to talk about the mitochondrial Eve and the Y chromosome Adam, and we're going to explain to you what it actually means, and some really good pieces of information here. There's a recent addition, and when I say recent, I'm talking, this would have been 2015, in fact, to the human family. The Pengu man, or Homo saichangensis, because of where he was found. So we'll talk about that next time. But after the break, Dave, I think we'll finish off. The Black Knight Satellite.
Awesome.
And we're gonna look at it from a skeptic's point of view, and then we'll leave it up to you what you think about the Black Knight Satellite, because the research is not conclusive, I think, as to what it really is going on. Anywho, I would have thought that would take us to the break, but do remember, this is a listener-funded station. If you like the content, if you like the shows, not just ours, all the shows, Solaris is, of course, just before ours, awesome show always, then donate if you can. It's really pretty straightforward and simple, and I still haven't been able to get in the chat room, which is really weird, but it's worthwhile to do, because you can access the archives for $5 a month. $5, guys! You can't even buy a burger for $5 anymore. Okay, not possible. And you can get access to all of the shows that are out in the archives. And you can get a seed pack if you give a certain donation, or an EMP-proof thumb drive. I mean, it's a whole bunch of stuff. And look, check out Nighthawk's pages as well. He's a gifted carpenter, I think. So there's some products there for you, which have nothing to do with any of this. But do donate, do support us. It is completely free. I mean, Dave's time, my time, all the other hosts, they do this because they believe this should be done, right? I for one am glad to be able to speak to you, and I hope you you're listening, so I hope you like to listen to us, right? It's a nice medium to have. It's a nice source of information. Do we make mistakes? Sure. Should you believe everything we say? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You shouldn't believe anything anyone tells you. You should do your own research. And hopefully we encourage that. But yeah, so if you can donate, please go ahead and do that, Dave. Take us to the end. I guess that's what the music should be starting. Oh,
right on cue, then. All right, so take the time in the break to donate, and we'll be back after a short station break.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Welcome back to Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mekki on freedomslips.com, the #1 listener supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5 a month. I'd like to say hello to all the new people that have begun listening to us, either subscribed or followed or through whichever medium it is. Welcome aboard, and we implore you to go back through our catalogue of shows so that you can catch up. If this is the first listen, you may want to do that for yourself. So trust us on that. We don't want you kicking and screaming into this. Voluntarily is much better. Oh, kicking and screaming, please. That's a Simpsons gag. I can't help it. Every single moment in my life, I've got a Simpsons gag in my head ready to say. We're halfway through show number. Let me pull it up. This is 283. Pause for Mekki.
380 and 200.
Very nicely put. Did you know that you can get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website? You can buy a CD of your favourite host shows for a previous season, maybe an EMP-proof thumb drive, which includes on it survival documents, or even a pack of 75,000 seeds that'll last years in your freezer. Whichever it is that you choose, if you make a donation to the station, make sure that you follow the instructions carefully to avoid disappointment. Also check with your customs agency to ensure that you can receive the gift that you're going to get in return for your donation. The number to call in if you're in the US of A is 347-688-2902. That's the station's number. Our number is very similar. It's 347-688-2912. We've only got 10 digits different. Very nice. Or you can add Freedom Screen to Skype and join us that way. If you live in Kentucky, you can listen to the station on WZZR 101.3 or anywhere else in the world, or actually the universe, as long as you've got the Earth's internet. You can get it via an app. An app is pretty good. TuneIn.com, Web, Radio Central, receive a mobile app. Freedom Slips Mobile, the station has its own app. TalkStream Live, Stream Finder, there's so many of them. But you can also get the Shiny Side Out app. You can be a fan of the show and still stream the station, and you've got access to our archives and also our news and everything, all the feeds we put out. It's all available there. So you might want to do that for yourself. Now, Meki, what we're doing is we're talking about the Black Knight satellite. Have you heard of it? I have. I followed this news story from the whole time when it first broke. Yeah.
Now, not to put a damper on anyone's enthusiasm, but this is the best article I could find on the Black Knight satellite. I followed up all the research this person had done, Brian Dunning, and similar to the Picnic at Hanging Rock. Now, there are still some mysteries around this Black Knight satellite. There are some mysteries. Having said that, let's share the article with you, and you make up your own mind. But again, like I said, the research that Brian Dunning has is correct. So what he puts forward as facts are in fact facts. But I'll make a point at each item to let you know whether or not it's been verified or not. So without further ado, so this is an article about the Black Knight satellite. It is a skeptical article as well, which so just want to quickly say that. And I still can't get into the chat room for some reason. It just times out. But anyway, there we are. hope everybody's having a good time in there. Now this is the article. So the stories say it's up there in the blackness right now, just outside the Earth's glow. It tumbles slowly and deliberately through the darkness, sweeping smoothly along its unrelenting orbit. The Earth spins below, largely unaware of its unauthorized parasitic visitor. It is the Black Knight satellite, a mysterious object circling the Earth of unknown and possibly alien origin. The story says it's up there right now and has been for 13,000 years. Like so many stories of weird phenomena, the Black Knight satellite legend starts with Nikola Tesla. It's said that he picked up a repeating radio signal in 1899 that he believed was coming from space, and said so publicly at a conference. In the 1920s, amateur ham radio operators were able to receive the same signal. Next, scientists in Oslo, Norway, experimenting with shortwave radio transmissions into space in 1928 began picking up long delay echoes, LDEs, a not fully understood phenomenon in which they received echoes several seconds after transmission. The apparent explanation finally came in 1954 when newspapers including the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the San Francisco Examiner reported an announcement from the US Air Force that 2 satellites were found to be orbiting the Earth, at a time when no nation yet had the ability to launch them. It appeared that Black Knight had been detected by multiple lines of evidence and was confirmed by the US Air Force. By 1960, both the United States and the Soviet Union had hardware in orbit. But on February 11, 1960, newspapers everywhere reported some alone news. that somebody else also had something in orbit. A radar screen designed by the US Navy to detect enemy spy satellites had picked something up. It was described as a dark, tumbling object. It wasn't ours, and it wasn't the Soviets either. The next day, newspapers reported a bit more information. The mysterious object was orbiting at about 79 degrees off from the equator, not the 90 degrees at a proper polar orbit. Its orbit was also highly eccentric, with an apogee of 28 kilometers, but a perigee of only 216 kilometers. The object made a complete orbit every 104.5 minutes. At the time, the Navy was tracking one known casing from an old Discoverer launch, a half shell a bit less than 6 meters long. Discoverer 8 had launched on November 29, 59, a stepping stone toward launching a man into space and then recovering him in a parachuting capsule. The launch went as planned, but its mission to eject its 136 kilogram capsule didn't go so well. The capsule's casing came off as planned, but the capsule itself went astray into an orbit somewhat similar to that of the mystery object and was eventually declared lost. The Navy tracked one of the casings, which was then orbiting every 103 minutes at 80 degrees with an apogee of 950 kilometers and a perigee of 187 kilometers. The Black Knight's object was similar, but not exactly the same. Dave?
And then in 1963, astronaut Gordon Cooper reported seeing a greenish UFO during his 15th orbit on board Mercury 9. It was witnessed on the radar screens by approximately 100 people at NASA's Mouchia tracking station near Perth, Australia. An official explanation given later was that Cooper's electronics had malfunctioned, and he breathed in too much CO2 when he which gave him hallucinations. Black Knight's reality seemed to be undeniable. In 1973, Scottish researcher Duncan Lunan wanted to know for certain. He went back to the Norwegian scientist LDE data and analysed it. Lunan discovered that it was a star chart pointing the way to Epsilon Boöti, a double star in the constellation of Bootes, or Bootes. Whatever Black Knight was, it appeared to be transmitting an invitation from the people of Epsilon Boöti, an invitation that was 12,600 years old, according to Lunan's analysis. The final piece of proof came in 1988, when the Space Shuttle Endeavour made its first flight to the International Space Station on flight STS-88. Astronauts aboard Endeavour took many photographs of a strange object, which were widely available to the public on the NASA website. But soon the photographs all disappeared. They reappeared sometime later with new URLs and with various descriptions explaining them all away as pieces of debris or some junk. The photographs were of a high quality and unmistakably showed some type of craft. Since then, we've known just about all there is to know about Black Knight. We know what it looks like, where it came from, when it came, its purpose as an ambassador, and it's been endorsed by so many reliable witnesses in the space program. So then, why does nobody know about it? And why does NASA fail to acknowledge its existence? What a great story. The idea of a 13,000-year-old alien satellite orbiting the Earth is about as exciting as it can get. People often accuse me of debunking stories like this, but I don't see it that way at all, says the author. I simply want to know more. I want to open the box wider and learn what's really going on. I don't want to stop here and say, that sounds weird. I want to learn the solution to the mystery. To those of you who dismiss this as debunking, I really have to say I don't understand why learning the whole story is seen as a negative process. I'm excited by it. And I was excited to learn what's behind the Black Knight satellite, and here's what I found. Meki.
And sorry, okay, cool. Look, just to be very clear, that's exactly the kind of stance the Shiny Side Out takes as well, and that's why I like this article so much. Okay, because I actually repeated all the research that he did, and he's correct. So we're not about creating mystery where there isn't any. There's enough mysteries out there, trust me, guys, not to require any made-up mystery. So let's see then what his research found, and you can make up your own mind about some of the items that are still, in my mind, mysterious, even though the overall story of the 13,000-year-old satellite might not be exactly what we have all been led to believe. Now, it turns out that all the bits of history making up the story of the Black Knight are unrelated. The phrase Black Knight is so common that the author was unable to determine whether the name was when it first became part of the story. It seems improbable that the name would have come from any spacefaring nation at the time, as it's such a common name. It has probably been assigned to any number of real projects. In fact, it has. And in fact, from 1958 to 65, the United Kingdom launched 22 rockets in a program that was called Black Knight, okay, to test re-entry vehicles and so forth. But Black Knight never put anything into orbit. Indeed, its second stage fired on the way down, not the way up, to better stress the re-entry vehicle, right, to test it better. So it never actually left the atmosphere. Take that name out of the equation and all the links of the chain fall apart. All the events said to be connected to the Black Knight satellite were well documented on their own, and none, at the time of course, made any mention of that name. Now, Nikola Tesla did in fact pick up rhythmic radio signals in 1899, that's a fact. And he did believe they came from space. Today we believe he was in fact correct, but we think he picked up pulsars, right, or signals from pulsars, which are giant deep space sources of pulsing radio signals that were formerly, officially discovered in 1968. A pulsar is a star, essentially, right? As Paul in Tesla's day, he did his best to explain what he thought they might be: intelligent and undeciphered signals. So now these are regular radio signals that seem to have a naturally occurring source, and these are called pulsars. The Norwegian scientists did indeed receive LDA radio reflections, and their cause remains nearly as much a mystery today as it did then. So, guys, this LDE stuff is still a mystery. Today we have 5 probable explanations, any or all of which may be responsible for some LDEs, and they mostly pertain to strange effects in the Earth's ionosphere. There are among about 15 plausible explanations. None of these include orbiting satellites or orbiting alien satellites. Although if an alien satellite elected to enter orbit, record our transmission and transmit them back to us 8 seconds later, it could well have the same effect. When Duncan Lunan did his translation of the LDE data in 1973 and came up with the star map, he never had any thought of Black Knight or any other strange polar satellite. In fact, his interpretation was that the LDEs were coming from the Earth's Lagrange points. Now, Lagrange points are essentially points where you can achieve a stationary position in the orbit between the Moon and the Earth, essentially, right? Okay, instead of moreover, Lunan later acknowledged that his method was not only unscientific, but that he had made outright errors and retracted it. So despite today's pop culture story, there never has been any reasonable interpretation of anything connecting Epsilon Boötis to either a mysterious satellite or a date of 12,600 years ago. Okay, Dave.
Those 1954 newspaper reports of 2 satellites in orbit. It was merely tongue-in-cheek reporting of the wild claims of a UFO crank trying to sell a book. The Air Force officer cited was merely a guy who had seen a UFO once, but in no way corroborated the idea of an unknown satellite orbiting Earth. Nothing to do with the alleged Black Knight. The most interesting part of the story was in 1960, when the Discoverer satellites were being launched. Secretary of Air Force Dudley Sharp told newspapers that this new mystery object was probably the second casing from Discoverer 8, the twin of the known piece they were already tracking. as it was the right size and in about the right place. This was soon confirmed. Time magazine even reported the identification, but since a mundane explanation is not as exciting as a mystery object, it was back-page news. And there's another interesting footnote about the Discoverer program. In 1992, a Central Intelligence Agency program called Corona was declassified and revealed that the Discoverer rockets were not about launching guys into space at all, but were actually carrying Corona spy satellites. Well, there's a surprise. The reason to use a polar orbit is that the craft eventually flies over every part of the Earth, and it's possible to photograph everything, unlike conventional semi-equatorial orbits that can only cover within a certain range of latitude. Back in those days, there was no such thing as transmitting digital images back to Earth, so film cameras had to be used, and a film had to be dropped back to Earth to be developed and studied. The Corona KH-1 camera would deorbit, pop a parachute, and then the parachute would be captured mid-air by the JC-130 recovery aircraft. So although the entire Discoverer program was a front, the launches and results reported in newspapers at the time were indeed correct according to what was later declassified. The Corona camera aboard Discoverer 8 was indeed lost exactly as reported in the 1960 newspapers, and its casings and their eccentric orbit were also correctly reported. Mekki.
So, what was it that Gordon Cooper saw from Mercury 9? And that was corroborated by all those radar operators. According to Cooper himself, who unfortunately died in 2004, what he saw was nothing at all. But make no mistake, Gordon Cooper did report seeing many UFOs during his flight career, as did many other astronauts. He remains adamant about a fleet of UFOs that he says flew overhead while he was stationed in Germany, though nobody seems to corroborate his story. But Cooper is also adamant, or was adamant, that the Mercury 9 UFO, his supposed sighting of a greenish black night in 1963, is a complete fabrication by UFO authors that never happened. He offered all the transcripts, including his own originals, as proof that no such thing was ever reported during his flight. The story appears in virtually every UFO book about the Black Knight case, but there's no record of any such thing from NASA, from the radar station personnel, or from any contemporary source. It's purely an invention of modern writers. Now, sorry, just pause here for a second. I did follow that up myself as well. Gordon Cooper did, in fact, say all of these things exactly as he did, because just because something isn't in the official record, for me, doesn't prove that it didn't exist. But Cooper himself did say that he never made that particular sighting during Mercury 9, but he did have many other sightings of unidentified flying objects, and not just he as an astronaut, but other astronauts as well. So that leaves us with the Endeavour's STS-88 flight and their startling photographs of a spacecraft. There are a lot of things wrong with this part of the story. First of all, the shuttle always flew in a semi-equatorial orbit, as does the International Space Station. An object passing in a polar orbit would have gone by there's actually an error here in the text. It would be by about tenths of kilometers per second. And that's very fast. Far too fast, in fact, to be visible. And certainly far too fast for so many high-quality photos to be taken. During one of the astronauts' EVAs, a thermal blanket was lost and drifted away. Silver on one side and black on the other. It was photographed extensively, but not during that EVA mission. It was the following one. There's another mistake in this text. It was crumpled and formed an odd shape. If you didn't know what to expect, the average person would have no clue what it was. But unfortunately for the legend, and unfortunately for the astronauts, it simply wasn't an alien satellite. Now, I've already mentioned the corrections at the end of this text. So what the Shiny Side Out is about is unearthing true mysteries and finding explanations and at least asking the question. There are some unanswered mysteries in relation to the Black Knight story, even though I think it seems there is potentially no alien satellite in orbit, at least not like this. Is there potentially another alien or any other unknown satellites in orbit? Potentially, it's possible. Anything is possible. In my opinion, though, they would be so technologically advanced that we would not be able to detect them. But that's what I think. If there were anything in orbit around the Earth, then we should also not discount the fact that it might stem from an earlier civilization that was based here on this planet, a terrestrial, homegrown civilization that put something in orbit. Be that as it may, it seems that the Black Knight story is in fact an amalgamation of a number of different stories. Tesla did pick up odd radio signals. Could they have been pulsar signals? Yes. Could there have been something else? Yes, there could have been. The LDEs, there's those funny echoes. We don't know yet what the explanation is. We don't know what causes them. There are many possible explanations, but we just don't know yet. And that actually surprises me because we've come a long way, and it is odd that we haven't been able to come up with a plausible explanation as to why those echoes exist. So that's where we're at with this Black Knight satellite story. I come down on the verdict that the actual story, as it relates to the Black Knight satellite, is incorrect, as it clobbers together a large number of unrelated stories. The unrelated stories themselves, though, have mysteries within them. Okay, they have mysteries within them. So, as you can see here, the CIA did launch a clandestine program into orbit, so there's stuff going on that we don't know about, so that's good. But then the other things I just mentioned, they're still mysteries. But the overall story of a 13,000-year-old alien satellite, there are two scenarios here. Two scenarios. One, it exists. It's there, and okay, so it is. Two, it isn't. And then the research was correct. But if it is there, then all of those things that I researched myself as well and that Brian Dunning here researched were fabricated in aid of hiding it. Do I think that's impossible? No, it's not impossible. Do I think it's likely? Not really. But you also have to understand that researchers like us come across a lot of red herrings to waste our time, to make us out like morons or untrustworthy news sources, right? And that's an easy hole to fall into, I can tell you. So we have to be critical with the information that we impart on you. I mean, look, for the most part, we hope you guys enjoy listening to our broadcasts. But by the same token, we also want to make sure that what we tell you is correct, or at least as far as we can ascertain it to be correct. So telling you a deliberate falsehood doesn't help anyone, unless it's funny, right? In which case, we'll probably tell you afterwards. No, but that's what it is. So that's why I really enjoyed this particular, and I wouldn't call this necessarily debunking, because what this guy did, Brian Dunning, is what Dave and I do, right? And sometimes the story just isn't mysterious. You've gone into the details, and what has come to us now is a very simple explanation as to a lot of stories, which some of them have mystery in them, have been cobbled together to form this overall narrative or mythology of a Black Knight satellite. Now, I want to give another example, Dave, very quickly. There are other mysteries where we have applied the same principles, and I want to give you the Jupiter Temple at Baalbek as an example. Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time on it, and as much effort as Brian did on this, and there simply is no good explanation as to who and how moved those 1,000-ton stones. There just isn't. The Roman Empire at the time was not capable of doing it, because at the same time they were trying to move an obelisk from one point to another. Oh, my daughter. It's not too well. That's okay. That's all right. Sorry, listening audience. That was my daughter registering her complaint at the world. But essentially, what we're dealing with, that's a real mystery. And so far, none of the debunking, if you want to call it that, explanations make any sense because they're wrong. This Brian Dunning guy happens to be right. He's right with this, right? But the debunkers for the Baalbek stones that come up with all these and see, you know what he did here in this article, which I really appreciate. Not once did he say because the experts said so, or it is common knowledge that.
That's
None
right.
of it.
Everyone knows that, Mackie.
Yeah, which is a bullshit argument. Pardon my French, right? And you can probably bleep it out, but it's a BSR. It's an argument that holds no water. So I respect his research, right? But having said that, there are many more mysteries out there in the world that can stand up to the same level of scrutiny and not be explained. Do you understand what I'm saying? They cannot be explained, and so therefore we must investigate them further. And that's why I put this here, because look, the Black Knight satellite I think is an awesome story. I mean, if you want to write a science fiction, or actually, if you want to, this would be great material for a sci-fi movie, right? But it looks like, apart from the mysteries that we identified, the overall story, I think we may have to dismiss. In fact, another example, Dave, is the installation in Siberia. Something seems to be there, and it holds up to scrutiny. But it is so remote, it is so inaccessible and apparently deadly that we can't get any concrete proof of its existence, right? But that's a mystery worth investigating.
Well,
as an example.
Well, Mackie, I like the stance you take on the story. The coming from what's his name? Brian Dunning. But there's a few holes in his argument that I would like to be able to focus on just for a minute. So
Sure.
The first one is the polar orbit. So how have we described the polar orbit of an object that doesn't exist? Why would it be a polar orbit? The only thing likening the polar orbit in his story was that the CIA were launching their own satellites in the Corona project. It doesn't suggest that, and the lore, according to the signals that were supposed to have been picked up, there isn't the LDEs and also Tesla's radio receivings of the pulsars, which are, by the way, supernovae collapsed stars, which then rotate and have polar emissions, which look like a lighthouse beacon if they happen to flash in your direction, if you're lucky enough to have the rotation of that pulsar. That's why they're called a pulsar. And they emit a lot of energy, and one of those frequencies on the EM band is radio. So they're radio lit, looking like very frequent, and the frequency is due to the rotation, so it's constant, and they're very accurate. However, there isn't, and this is what I still think is missing from this, and we would certainly love to be able to delve in this further, and that is, there isn't any connection that the mystery object, the Dark Knight satellite, is in any kind of orbit. That's the lore suggests that it was in one way, but since the proof of the object is still missing, we couldn't suggest either way. So he's attempted to debunk it, I suppose, from that angle, but really there isn't any basis for that in his argument. And the other one is that they are disconnected stories. They appear as though they're disconnected stories, and I do like his approach on that one as well. But do you know what? I like, and I would like to think that it was real, that this was just another way of being able to drown it out, to drown away that belief that it does exist, to make it go away. That's a romantic view that I have, Mackie, on it, right? And purely because there are some photographs, and the photographs appear and are described as, because I've seen a series of them, that it could be a blanket, a large kind of blanket, folded up on itself, and those few photos that we've seen, that everyone's seen, could very well just have been that collapsed blanket. And that's what's, as soon as someone thought that, then they've gone back in history and looked for corroborating evidence and then drawn the rest together. So that's an interesting way of putting it. But Mackie, there's another story here from March 21st, 2017.
Yeah, no, but yeah. No, go ahead. Knock yourself out.
I just think that this is the point of view that is very interesting as well, because this is how lore, L-O-R-E, builds up. And this is
Right.
the Black Knight satellite destroyed. A strange story circulating among conspiracy theorists over the last few days claims that the infamous Black Knight satellite has been shot down by the Illuminati. Much like the notorious Planet X, the alleged satellite has long been a part of UFO lore due to various accounts of mysterious objects being spotted orbiting the Earth. Eventually, these seemingly unrelated stories congealed into a Black Knight satellite legend after NASA photographed a dark, anomalous object during a space shuttle mission, and that's what I'm focusing on there. Since then, the narrative surrounding the satellite generally says that the object is an alien device tasked with watching over the Earth, and it is over 10,000 years old. Although largely existing in the fringes of UFO research, the Black Knight satellite found its way into the news again recently in a scenario worthy of its checkered past. Late this week, a video appeared online that showed a glowing object streaking across the sky before breaking up and subsequently disappearing. The footage was accompanied by a backstory of how the object was the Black Knight satellite, and that this was the moment that it was destroyed by a secret mission orchestrated by the Illuminati. Mekki?
Taking the tale even further into the fantastic, the footage was purportedly procured via a secret server used by WikiLeaks and then surreptitiously posted to YouTube by hackers hoping to reveal the truth. Fortunately for fans of the Black Knight satellite, though, it appears that the entire story was fabricated, as diligent researcher Scott Brando discovered that the footage was actually from the 2010 re-entry of the Japan's Hayabusa probe. Having thwarted an alien invasion back in December, Brando can now also apparently be credited with having saved the Black Knight satellite as well. Now, just quickly on that though, there's something very interesting here. So there was a line that Dave read, and it says here, what does it say? Oh, here we go. More much like the terrorist there. No, that's not it. No, here we go. Eventually, these seemingly unrelated stories congealed into a Black Knight satellite legend after NASA photographed a dark, anomalous object during a space shuttle mission. That's a very important sentence because, again, if the Black Knight satellite is bogus, and I think the overall story might be, but let's say it is bogus, and people mention it and quote it and put it forward as evidence for alien visitations in the past and all these wonderful things. With one fell swoop, you can discredit a whole bunch of people. Sorry, when I say discredit, I mean you can put their reputation into doubt. So that's why we, I mean, unfortunately, the onus is on us. We have to remain vigilant as to what we think is true and what is not. Mm-hmm. So, because the truth is this, guys, there are pictures and videos of completely inexplicable objects and phenomena on the moon, in orbit, in space, on the Earth. Okay? Completely inexplicable. They exist. Many, many, many of them. And NASA also tampered with photos. You have to be a moron not to realize this when you look at the pictures themselves, right? Like smudged things, pixelated things, type stuff. Crosshairs behind an astronaut. And then the crosshairs being, of course, on the lens of the camera.
It's on the actual lens. Not only that, but missing crosshairs. And then Photoshopped space that just doesn't exist, and the crosshairs are deleted. What about photos that don't match the EVA? So they had a scheduled EVA, and then there's photos and video footage, which is, that NASA says, is from that EVA, when it's clearly not from that EVA. It's at a different location, and it looks as though it's from a different time on a different mission. So when you start to join all this anomalous information together, Mackie, you're absolutely right. There's more things out there.
Oh, absolutely. And it is that we need to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a Black Knight satellite, a 10,000-year-old alien artifact in orbit, that would be awesome.
I know,
I think it would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I have to come down on like, because of the way that these stories have all converged into one, I have to be myself very skeptical here, right? So do I say there is one? No, I do not. Do I say it's possible? Sure, anything is possible. But I do believe that we need to focus on the other pictures, on the other photos, on the other videos, on the other strange locations and objects and so forth. That's what we need to focus on, rather than this. You know, because this can be very easily argued against. There are videos out there and photos out there that it's very hard to argue against, right? Very, very difficult, because they're just compelling. They're very compelling pictures. Are they all showing something that is necessarily a UFO or necessarily an unexplicable phenomenon? No, they don't necessarily do all of that. However, out of the hundreds or even thousands of those pictures, only one needs to be authentic, and only one needs to show a truly, let's call it an alien or visitor craft or whatever, or an inner Earth. I don't care, whatever, but something that we didn't make, right? Only one. And right now, the evidence, in my opinion, is a lot stronger than just one. I think there are many photos, there are many videos, which we either don't want to explain, you know, because it's like a mission, secret mission, blah, blah, whatever, or we cannot explain. I prefer the ones that we don't want to explain, because it makes me feel like we have a level of control left in this world. The ones that we cannot, well, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
The ones that we cannot explain, the ones that we cannot explain are the ones that worry me. Those are the ones where I go, oh, wow, okay, so, all right then, what do we think this is, guys? What's happening here? And what? Okay, because the truth is this. If we didn't do it and we didn't put up there, then there is definitely something going on that has an agenda well beyond our control. Okay, and it may not be a benevolent agenda. It may not be something where we're going, oh, they're just here to give us, blankets and glass pearls. Right?
Cootie-ridden blankets, Mackie.
Cootie-ridden blankets.
Think about this, Mackie. Think about this. If the distraction to take away the focus of the moon itself being the overseer of the planet, or the home of the overseers, then the Black Knight satellite was a great distraction, because that focused their position from being the moon, the obvious choice, to being a satellite. And now that the satellite doesn't exist, do we transfer those overseers back to the moon again? Or we just discontinue that thought stream? Do we turn it off? Do we, oh, there's no overseers now?
Good question.
You know, so maybe that's the motive. And Mackie's right. It's very difficult from our standpoint to continue we have to continue to be wary and vigilant about what it is that we believe in. It's very hard, because, and we've seen this happen to some people in the industry, where, you know, the flat Earth or the Nibiru heavy mass objects, all of these things have been such magnets for people that the moment you get them to become, you know, onboarded with these ideas, that the person becomes discredited, because how can you believe in this if you believe in that? And yet they join the two together, and then suddenly they've lost the whole audience. and it's very tough. So we prefer to stay right on the edge, and being able to examine and keep up to date with all of the current information on it. And this is one of the eye openers for me, Meki. I'm a true believer in the mystery. I love the mystery of everything there is, but in the end, you'll have to measure it against something.
Yes, that's right.
So how much truth is there? And at some point, you'll have to come to terms with your own belief or what you want to believe in.
And again, guys, just because this Black Knight satellite story may not be completely true, right? And an amalgamation of different stories, of some of which have mystery within them. Don't forget that, please, right? It does not take away from the truly other, or from the truly mysterious other stories that are out there. And please, just because one thing isn't true doesn't mean the next thing is a lie as well. And sometimes these things are fabricated on purpose, Dave. They're fabricated to throw us off. They're fabricated to sow doubt and discredit people like us, which is okay. I understand that. I know why people do it. But it's really important to stay focused on the facts. Stay focused on what we can prove and what we can research, right? And then also be very honest when we say, well, this is as far as we can go. At this point, everything is classified. Or at this point, now we need a physical investigation, like the installation in Siberia, like the Black Hill in Queensland, and things like other things like that. You actually, now we have done everything we can remotely. We now have to physically go there. Will Dave and I have the opportunity to do that? Well, if we had the money, we could, right? So am I willing to do and go and have a look? Yes, I am. But I can't finance it right now because guess what? I have a day job, and same with Dave. Now, I'm sure Dave, you would also be willing to go and investigate if somebody was funding it, right?
Do you know what? I want to investigate every single one of the last mysteries on the planet.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what I want to do it for me. I want to do it for Meki. I want to do it for Shiny Side Out. I want to do it for all the people who are interested in finding out the truth too.
Yeah. And I think for our kids, because the thing is this, if you can shine a light into every dark corner, right? And if you can touch every subject that is taboo, I think the world could become a better place, because knowledge is power. And ultimately though, knowledge is also liberating. If you know, right, things and you use them wisely, I think this knowledge is a very liberating kind of thing, because nobody is more easily deceived than the ignorant fool. Right? And by ignorant fool, I don't mean someone that's dumb. I just mean someone who doesn't know stuff. Someone either willingly or unwillingly is not aware of things, hasn't learned things, right? Now, if somebody doesn't know something, that's okay. You can teach. Because just because...
Oh, Meki's audio is gone again.
Right.
There we go. Back again. You're back again, Meki. It's safe.
I'm being... sorry, I was being profound. So it's okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
That a lack of knowledge is not a crime. A willing lack of knowledge, that's a crime. Right? So again, we have to educate ourselves. And like I said, though, hopefully you heard that, guys. And knowledge is liberating. Knowledge is a great liberator, because you will not live in ignorance in a dark age, and nobody can deceive you if you know stuff. If you know stuff, all right, and you know stuff to be true and other stuff not to be true, it is very difficult for people to deceive you. Okay, just know stuff, right? Become part of the knowledge economy these days. It's called, right? Be a knowing person. Right? Educate yourself, and don't just take things for granted. I mean, that's how the church has kept its power for such a long time. Willing ignorance. Well, initially it was enforced ignorance. I mean,
yes.
Oh, it was. I mean, they were preaching in a language most people didn't understand, right? Latin. Oh, yeah, well, don't, never you mind what I'm saying. Just give me everything you have. Okay. Yes, sir.
Hey, Meki. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is saying, if you could tell, people always, it comes up, right? People say, oh, well, tell me something that I don't know about. You have this radio show and you do all this stuff. What is it? I say, go Göbekli Tepe, Pumapunku.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
right?
that'd be
When I
brilliant.
mentioned those topics, they go, what are you talking about?
Oh,
I
really?
said, what about the Mahabharata? I said, you find out, like you said already, about the Baalbek temple stones. If you can tell me how they moved them, and who moved them, and when they moved them, you'll know what I know. Because no one has the ability to move those stones. No one in the human history that we know about. So if you find that, I think then you'll find the real answer. Pumapunku. H blocks. I mean, what's with H blocks? No one built with them before then or after then. How can you have machined blocks that go together like the whole thing was made of Lego? And it was a foundry, and well, you find out about that, then you'll really know what was happening. But all this history is cut off, segmented, diced, and scattered to the wind at the moment. Because no one's willing to really understand and cope with there being a civilization, a high civilization before the current one. The Mahabharata tells us all about that. And talk about the Sumerians. The Sumerians with knowledge that came from space. Only could it have come from a spacefaring people.
Yep.
According to our timeline, they couldn't have even had glass. They couldn't have made optics. They could not have made optics enough to be able to see these planets. So there must have been, according to history, they just made it up. It's just fanciful stories that just happen to be accurate and true. Because they're unwilling to accept that a spacefaring race has visited us in the past. Yes, you can tell I'm an ancient astronaut theorist. But were they ours? Don't know. Don't know who they are. But you've got to come to terms with that being real before you can continue down this path. So Mekki and I are of the belief that there has been high intelligence, high civilizations of high tech in the past. Because it makes sense. The stories are there. The tech is there. The evidence is there. Right in front of us. And the only way that can be there is if it's true. There isn't another way, unless, of course, Mekki, tomorrow you into a time machine and we go back in time to when maybe stone masonry was at its peak, and then
I'm working on it.
Yeah, good. And then we go back in time even further and build some stuff that'll just freak people out in the future.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way on this timeline. And it's a good segue for the next show. That can it be possible? It can't be possible any other way, unless there was something else and something bigger. So, when people want to know about this stuff, these are really easy targets because they're there. But then people, Mekki, they ask, well, why didn't we learn about this at school? Because they're afraid.
That's correct.
Who's afraid? Well, the people with the money. They can't have you knowing that it's been done before. They just can't. And they're afraid that you'd know.
That's it.
Maybe this is the Matrix, Mekki. I'd like it if it was the Matrix. I want to bend backwards and do that thing that Neo does, you know?
I want to run on walls. That's what I want to do. I want to run up a wall. That's my thing.
Oh, jump from one building to another. Yeah.
How cool would that be? Huh?
I think it'd be pretty cool.
I think so. But look, even if, but that's even look. The reason I would like that as well is because then you have even more mysteries to uncover. Like, you know, for example, well, let's all wake up then, right? Or let's find the real reality, or the source reality, if you want to call it that. And how do we get there? What does that look like, right? And again, it's. I do believe that we are in a prison. I do believe that we are here, not to grow spiritually or whatever. We're just here to to be reborn into the same reality over and over again. And I think now, since my epiphany, I believe it's because of the because of quantum decoherence. Somebody has to be here to look at this universe, and that's us.
Awesome. We'll catch you next week for show 284. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe to it. You'll get updates as we put new shows out. Stay tuned for a Jer Bear and a roundtable. Contribute, and maybe one day you could be on air too. Take care, everyone. See you next week.